The Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Speaker, if any legislation demonstrates the arrogance of this government and the litany of broken promises that it now reigns under, it's this legislation. In 2010, when Nick Smith announced to the country through this Parliament that he was removing the right of Canterburyans to vote for their regional council, he said things that were not accurate about the reasons for that removal of our right to vote. He said that it was because of the regional council's inability to function properly, which is code for the irrigators hadn't won. And he said that in 3 years' time, our right to vote would be restored. He repeated that 3 years later when he continued to remove our right to vote and said it will be restored in 3 years' time. And 3 years on, the chairperson of the Local Government and Environment Select Committee, who I frankly used to think better of, said this is a transition to democracy. We've heard it before, Mr Simpson. We heard it 3 years ago and we heard it 3 years before that. Canterburyans are not prepared to be lied to by Cabinet Ministers about something as fundamental as our right to vote. We might vote for people that the Minister doesn't like. In fact, I could guarantee that I'd be voting for people that the Minister doesn't support politically. We're in different political parties. Isn't that what democracy is all about? I didn't vote National in the last election. I'm unlikely to ever do that. But I support the National Party leading our government, despite my opposition to it, because that is what a democratic process is about. But Mr Bridges and his cronies in the National Party think that we don't deserve that right in Canterbury, and I think he's wrong. Mr Simpson criticised the lack of submissions on this bill. 1,167 submissions on this piece of legislation, with a very truncated period of time calling submissions, less than half the usual period that's allowed, less than half, rammed through the Select Committee process, submitters laughed at by members of the National Party at the committee, submitters being distressed at the way they were treated at the Select Committee. 1,152 submitters opposed this legislation in totality, said they did not support it and did not want it progressing through the House. So how many does that leave? Out of 1,167, do the maths, Mr Simpson, it leaves 15 who supported it. That's right. 15 out of 1,167. So what does the National Party do? They say, who cares? Who cares about democracy? Who cares about the submitters? Who cares about a proper process? Not the National Party. All they care about is ramming this bill through and once again, for another 3 years, denying Canterburyans the right to vote for our regional council. Every other region in the council has that right to vote. When Nick Smith tried explaining it to Canterbury, he said, wow, full restoration of democracy? You know, as if it was an unheard of thing. Hello, this is New Zealand. Full restoration of democracy, we can't have that because it's too risky. Too risky to allow people in Canterbury to vote for people that they want to make decisions around the regional council table. In opposing this legislation, I want to put on the record that Labor has always tried to work constructively with the government on earthquake-related issues. This is not about those issues, and I commend the committees that have been doing work in other parts of our recovery and rebuild and working constructively. This is not what this is about. This is about irrigation. This is about the battle over water in Canterbury and what is the healthiest way of progressing. And that's something that the ECAN commissioners themselves promised to address. In 2010, they said, we will have a target of ensuring that 80% of rivers in the Canterbury region are safe for swimming. Well, that's well above the national government's aim for water quality in New Zealand. So at that time, 74% of our rivers were in that category, safe for swimming. 2016, 67% of rivers in our region are safe for swimming. So where is that ambitious goal of 80% compared to a decline in the quality of our water in our rivers in the 6 years that we have been denied our right to vote? Where is the drive? Where is the action for improving the quality of our water? The commissioners that the National Party appointed, good people, all of them actually, but the commissioners made a commitment to reaching a target of 80% when the current level was 74% and now it's 67%. They're going in the wrong direction. Mr. Speaker, when my ancestors came to this country, well inhabited, though it was already by that time, they came because they thought New Zealand would offer a better opportunity for them and their children and grandchildren, and they were right. Because New Zealand was founded by people who had a vision of a better future, a place where people would look after each other, an egalitarian society. Seems to be an old-fashioned term nowadays, but I still like it. I still like the idea that we live in a country where it doesn't matter where you were born. If you work hard, you'll be able to achieve your dream. That's the country that I grew up in. That's the country that my ancestors came here. Some of our ancestors came by water, some by air. People are still coming because they see New Zealand as a country where people can have the best life. That's a dream that I want to continue to aspire to. We are very proud in New Zealand of being the first country in the world where women won the right to vote. Very proud of that fact. We show off about it, and so we should. So for that pride to have dented the government's deliberate removal of our right to vote is something that the National Party should be hanging their heads in shame about. We boast about being the first country in the world where women won the right to vote. Well, women in Canterbury are now being granted so generously by the government half a vote. We get to vote for half of our council. So are the national women members going to boast about that around the world? Are they going to say, we were the first to win the right to vote, but now we've only got half a vote for a regional council? Mr. Speaker, that right to vote gave everyone in New Zealand, regardless of gender, regardless of their wealth, regardless of their property. It was something that very few other countries had. In fact, some still don't. Democracy and the right to vote, the requirement to pay taxes in exchange for a right for representation, is something that should be at the heart of this Parliament. Removing that right is something that should happen in extreme circumstances, and it certainly should only be done with the understanding, not necessarily the support, but the understanding of people whose rights are being taken away. There must be an extraordinary reason for taking away New Zealanders' fundamental rights. But the Minister not only has taken them away, but misled us about re-granting those rights. Nick Smith said in 2010, I'm taking these away, taking this right away, not half of it, in total. We didn't have any vote for a regional council. He might have thought we were a bit stressed because of the quakes, that he was doing us a favour. Well, he was wrong because he took away a fundamental right that every other New Zealander had, and we deserve that right back. He said you'll get it back in 3 years' time. 3 years later, he misled us again by saying, I'm sorry, I'm not ready, it's too risky, I'm taking away your rights again for another 3 years, you'll get them back in 3 years' time. And tonight in this House, ramming it through in the last hours of the Parliament, we hear Mr Simpson from Coromandel, where they get every single right to vote, telling us that in another 3 years we'll get our vote back. Well, that's not good enough. It shows an arrogant,
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member.
dismissal.
Her time has expired. Her time has expired.